Morning, brothers and sisters. Naomi back for another video. I thought today we'd take a real focused look at how the she-goat is your fountain. She is the lily of the covenant. We're going to focus particularly on the daughter of Zion, not so much the daughters, but they factor into it regardless. So we're going to look at all these allegories. This is a study that we've been quite involved in through our many videos. So if you are interested in understanding what this covenant is about, she is mentioned in the Abrahamic covenant in Genesis 15:9. She's your she-goat that you see there. The grouping of the daughters of Zion, who represents the remnant of Israel, is mentioned as the heifer, and they are promised full restoration back to their rightful place. They were rejected. The righteous spirit was rejected out of her rightful place as the daughter of Zion, as the ruler of the body, which the first Adam rejected, and we've discussed that in many, many videos. So we're going to look at all of the allegories that's weaved into that, okay? And I wrote a comment under my last video, and I wrote it later, so some who watch my video may not have seen it posted there. And it's a long comment, and it's helped me to understand a lot of things that I didn't understand about the law, about truly the sacrifice that Christ made on the cross, okay? So I'm just going to read it, and I wrote fairly long comments under the last 2 or 3 videos for anybody who's interested in trying to understand how the law actually incorporates into this in the right way, and not in the way that they've kind of brainwashed it, that yeah, it's the law of God, and all of these laws that suppress so many different people under those laws are from God. No, they're not. No, they're not. So this is the comment that I wrote. Bear with me, it's fairly long. I didn't say everything I wanted to say, but I got cut off. I could only put my comment so long, as most of you already know that you can do. I have posted this under the last 2 videos, and I thought I would add it here as well for anyone who reads the notes under the videos. The laws of God are found in Ezekiel 18 and Isaiah 58. At least some of them are, okay? The law Christ upheld was the law of heaven, not Old Testament law. When did Christ ever actually fulfill certain laws? When you think about it, he never once enacted the laws of bitter waters. And but the example that was given in the New Testament was the woman that was brought for adultery all by herself. So where was the man, right? Oh wait, men don't commit adultery under the law. That's them writing it there. And why they all wanted to stone her to death, Christ said, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. Every time men tried to focus on just the woman, and they did. They brought this up in the New Testament many times, and they would only bring it up from the male perspective. So when men were talking about divorcing women, Christ brought it in. He said, this doesn't only hold true for any man who divorces a woman, but it holds true for a woman who divorces a man. So he was bringing them up to equality under the law. That's what he did every time, if you pay attention to what he did. So he would apply the laws to the women in an equal fashion is what he was doing. Men treated as if they had the power over the law, but Christ showed them their sin under the law. There was a supposed 613 laws plus all the appendages. For anybody who goes into Judaic law and study it, you'll come to realize just how extensive these laws have become. These were man-made laws. Clearly, we are expected to reason and to pay attention to Christ's behavior. He did not enact Old Testament law. He corrected them, and then he fulfilled the laws of heaven. This is what Christ did. This is something mankind has not been able to do, which is to fulfill the law of heaven. The Jews, or the Pharisees, wanted him crucified because he would not uphold their man-made laws, Torah. Can you imagine if Jesus had picked up one of the stones and cast it at the woman? Can you imagine what it would have been like if he had joined in with their man-made laws and had not healed the woman in the temple? Now there was a woman with a sickness. She came, and Christ healed her in the temple on the Sabbath, and they all had a fit about it. The men did. You don't do this, especially with a woman. That was really a focused aspect of their attacks was women. If you pay attention to what they did, I mean, come on. Just about every time somebody was brought for adultery, it was a woman. So don't tell me their focus wasn't on women. putting all the blame on the woman. That's what it was about. Now, I read an article quite a few years ago that women were never known as daughters of Abraham. Okay, so I couldn't put all my comment here because they just wouldn't let me add any more. But in the New Testament, it says he calls her a daughter of Abraham. I don't think they should have been called daughters of Abraham. I think they were supposed to be called daughters of Sarah. That's what I think they should have been called. Because the women were where you were going to find the seed of the woman that descended from Eve that come to make up the nation of Israel. And that is why the nation of Israel, the 10 northern tribes, has not been restored, because they were cast out in the fields of the Gentile, and there they still are, and you're only going to claim that through the woman's seed, not through the man's. Now, here he calls her a daughter of Abraham, and it is to show to the men that she was equal to they were. It was only known sons of Abraham. They were never known as daughters of Abraham, which they should have been daughters of Sarah, in my opinion. So here he showed it. He showed the respect. He showed the equality. And he healed her on the Sabbath. And he showed you what the Sabbath day was for. All right? Which takes you back to those laws that you're going to find in Ezekiel 18 and Isaiah 58. And I'm sure they're weaved throughout the text. Everywhere, here and there. Once you hit them, you'll know them. And Christ showed them what the laws were. He showed them how this law of heaven was to be fulfilled, but their man-made law had made it all a sin, particularly when it came to targeting women, and it did. He simply corrected their Torah, their man-made law, every time they tried to condemn him through it. This is why God says, I write the law on your heart. They wanted to blame. He came to show forgiveness. They wanted to hate and shed blood. He shed his own, because of the hate in men's heart, and they crucified him through their man-made law, wherein sin, we are told, is imputed. If the love of Christ shows us nothing but this, it is that it was the sin of man. We are told that iniquity is shaped by the law that nailed him to the cross, because he refused to uphold their man-made law that was nailed to the cross, because he upheld the laws of heaven. And that's why he died. Christ claimed back the righteous spirit for us all, because he upheld her, which is daughter Zion's law. We're going to prove that now when we get into this study, okay? That was given in the beginning by her and rejected by man in the very beginning. She is known as his key of David. And for anyone who can actually reason and piece the text together without the sin of man-made theology, it is told clearly to us. And I've done study after study on this. For anybody who truly has eyes to see. Know ye not, he that is joined to a harlot is one? So does that mean that you're not the image of God? I would say it would mean that. Because clearly this is saying if you're joined to a harlot, you are a harlot. So Christ was joined to the daughter of Zion. The righteous spirit rejected in the beginning. This is what made Christ the image of God. Now I bow in honor to my great King. I love him for who I know he truly was. I don't know how you can love him and claim that he put women under subjection of men. I don't know how you can claim to love who he truly was. I don't understand that, because that's not what the love of my heart is telling me when I think of my beloved Christ. So true love, where was I? It's a long passage and it's tightly weaved in there. Let me see here. I lost my place. So I pursue the truth in honor of my King, and in his name and in the name of my God. She, the Spirit, daughter Zion. True love is what shows you the true love of God. Man will argue semantics because he wants to be above everything. Shockingly, women too, who are caught up in the ignorance of Baal, who have fell into their snare like silly women caught away by them. Men, that's a passage in the New Testament, by the way. That's why I said it that way. Men, we expect to get caught up into their ensnaring according to the scriptures. They do. They wrote a religion that puts them the head, that puts them in charge, and that makes them a god of this earth. This tastes like honey on their tongue, though it's cobra's venom, wormwood. That's your law. That's your wicked law, known as wormwood and cobra's venom. Women, I would expect a different reaction from, like sincere questions of where you truly fit into the picture, and not the one fed to you by the pride of Baal, your husband. Your word there is 1167 Hebrew. Men are afraid to really discuss the law because they know their hold is very tenuous at best. When we truly begin to understand this, to examine this more fully, they know through the truth their power, which is man as God, will be removed under it. They are truly afraid to study the word. Now, reason the law of Christ in your heart, not from man-made words on a page. God says she will write the law of heaven on our hearts. That's love. Surely Christ's love will lead us home. And I believe he will. His love is what's going to lead that one daughter to the truth. All right? Now we're going to examine that in this study. Okay? Because she's weaved in there. They don't want you to know about her. She don't exist. Oh, women aren't part of this. No, no, no. It's all he. Well, let's look at it. All right. So, what does it say in this passage? Now, you can argue me. I mean, looking at my count, not many are paying attention to anything I have to say. That's okay. This is for the few that actually are picking it up. May the Lord bless you dearly. 1 Samuel 2:35 says this. Then I will raise up for myself a faithful priest. Now, the spiritual overview on this is, I'm looking at it as Christ is the faithful high priest. And when you look the word up for priest here, it will take you back to the Melchizedek priesthood. So I am thinking that it is Christ in view in a spiritual overview here. So it says, then I will raise up for myself a faithful priest. He will do whatever is in my heart, my mind, and my soul. Okay? So that's the daughter Zion, that's the spirit, that's Mother Jerusalem from above. And I will build for him an enduring house, and Christ will walk before my anointed one. That's daughter Zion. It doesn't say Christ, but I'm putting Christ in here. Forever. He will walk before her forever. Now, when you get looking at that passage, we're told it's Samuel, all right? But the long distance overview on that is that this is Christ, all right? And he walks before the anointed one. She's also known as the Holy One, and she is known as the daughter of Zion. Now, you find him, Christ, as the prince in Ezekiel 44, 46, and 47, all right? And the Lord that comes out to talk to the prince or to meet him face to face, and that's an important term because your face to face makes you equal. Okay, so the prince is equal to this Lord, 136. All right, and she speaks on behalf of the Lord. All right, which is 3068 is the number there. Now, what I began to realize in all of this that I've been studying and how everything began to take place, because this is exactly what it's looking like more and more. All right, so I'm going to surmise it for you here, okay, or summarize it here for you, how I began to look at it. We lost our power as the daughters of Zion. We lost our power, which we, over time, all right, because this plays out over time, and this is what we miss often in the context of the telling of it, that it did take time for it to play out, all right? But slowly we daughters lost our power as we forgot the power of the Spirit, which indwells us more powerfully than it would our male counterpart, because we represent the Spirit on earth, all right? But as we forgot about that spiritual power, all right, that indwelt us in the very beginning, and we began to take more his lies as the truth, it moved further and further away from us is the idea. Our power moved further and further away from us. It looked as if we had power over all things. We had power over the elements of life to a much greater degree than the men did. We began to put more faith in the physical, in the male, and in the strength than in the spiritual power. And as we lost sight of the truth, we lost sight of Mother. We became greatly weakened until all began to believe that the physical power of man represented the spiritual power of God. mother. We fell into their snare, all right? But we have found the truth. This snare is much harder for men to crawl out of. But as we begin to pull away from the truth, Mother God pulled her power away from us. That's what happened. As we began to pull away from her and her truth, the Spirit began to pull away from us, all right? And we began to turn to our husbands as if he was the image of God, as if that physical power represented the power of God, and it did not. It was the Spirit that did that, all right? And she moved off. That's the allegory that we get. And she turned her back to us, all right? And we lost our power on earth when we began to put it all in our husbands. And there is a verse, I can't remember where it is. I meant to look it up. Sorry about that. It's in Hosea or it's in Habakkuk, I believe. It's in one of the minor prophet books anyway, at the back of the Old Testament. And she says, you turn to your husband as if he was what gave life to everything. So she says, you turn back to your husband and get him to save you. If that's what you believe, if you believe in his physical power as the power that's going to save you and as the image of God, then you don't need me. And that's what she says. And I said it in one of my videos. I'm not going to put my faith in any man to save me because he can't save me. It is the power of God that saves. It is not the power of man that saves anybody. But he, according to Habakkuk, these men have placed faith in their might, in their physical power, as if that makes them God. God says, you're not God, but you pulled back from me, and you began to believe that it was your husband that was the image of God, and that's what birthed you and gave you life. She says, it was not. She says, it was me. Now, what we're going to look at is the daughter Zion as your spirit, as your pool of water, and that is also going to take us back to a study I did just this weekend. I'll share some of it if I get the chance with you in Ezekiel 44, 46, and 47. Now it shows us actually, I believe, New Jerusalem here on earth, because the temple is built over this huge body of water that flows out of the temple, all right? And it looks like it flows to the four corners of the earth. And it says the trees that grows along the bank, well, that's the same allegory you get in Revelations of the trees that grows along the river. And it says that the fruits and the leaves are for the healing of the nations. And it says that in Ezekiel 47. But we're speaking of the water that flows out of it, okay? So we're looking at water as an allegory to your spirit. And this allegory is used in many descriptions to describe the righteous spirit as your wife, okay? So we're going to look at a few words here that I was looking at. And for anybody who watched my other studies, this is all going to factor into it. So we have Christ as the high priest. And we have the daughter Zion as the anointed one. She's known as the Messiah here in 1 Samuel 2:35. But she is the branch that sits to Christ's right hand in Psalm 110. All right, so we need to understand how we realize Christ's number as the priest after the order of Melchizedek. He is defined as number 113 in Psalm 110. Mother, who sends the strength of his branch out of Zion, her number is 3068. Christ sits to her right. His number is 113. He is a priest after the order of Melchizedek forever. She says, I promised him this. This is my promise to him. Then she says, I will send the strength of the branch of thy strength out of Zion. And the Lord that sits to your right, she says, that's daughter Zion. And she is identified as number 136 in this passage. Okay? So we have a distinction made here. But now, as we go on, and also in Deuteronomy 10, the term Lord of Lords is used. All right? That Lord of Lords there is 136 over 113. She is a queen over kings. That's what she is. And that is what that would have you identify the birthright holder in Revelations 19 that leaves the heaven with her children, with her vineyard, with her army. All right, which is given back to her. And and she has on her thigh Lord of Lords. That's her birthright. It's not a man who leads this. This is a woman that leads this. And she is daughter Zion, and she is the rightful ruler. Now, the Shulamite's name. All right, we're going to just have to go through this. If I'd have done it yesterday, I would have been able to speak in more power in the things that I was learning. Even a day's delay, it puts so many things off for you. But the Shulamite, it states, when you look that name up, and we're talking about the Shulamites from Song of Songs here, but it says, compare the Nabatean, or compare Shulamite, which is your modern Sulem, S-U-L-E-M. Well, that's Jerusalem, and Sulem means peaceful, all right? That's what it means. So this is a daughter of peace. These are daughters of peace. They bring peace through the law of truth as the Spirit manifested on this earth. All right? So you could say that the Shulamite is actually representing Jerusalem, Mother Jerusalem from above, which is then daughter Zion here on earth. All right? Now we're going to get into this as long as I don't run out of time. I may have to make a second video on this. So, but Shiloh is another term for her. All right? This is what it says. And the reason why we know that is because we identified her as the branch that sits to Christ's right hand in Psalm 110. All right? And she is the branch. She's also known as the servant that goes forth, the messenger in Isaiah 40, 41, 42, 43. Those are all about your servant, your branch, which then you're going to find reference in Zechariah 3. She is the daughter Zion going forth. And you find her in the blessings of Judah as well. And what does it say here? This is very eye-opening. All right. Genesis 49. I don't think I got it pulled up here. Oh, maybe I do. Yeah. Genesis 49 says this. It says, the scepter, that's a branch, will not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet, until she, not he, to whom it belongs, shall come, and the gathering of the people shall be to her. Right? Shiloh comes, and the allegiance of the nations is hers. It's hers. It belongs to her, the daughter of Zion. Now, Shiloh, when we get looking at that word, it's actually supposed to be derived as from, it's a possibility that it actually means messenger. But Shiloh also means peace. It also has the idea of tranquil, peacefulness. And here we have the Shulamite, also known as peace. We're looking at the spirit here. All right? And what do we find in Isaiah 8:6? Watch what it says in Isaiah 8:6. All right? It says this. And I'm going to use the King James on this one. Sometimes the King James is a beautiful, these are beautiful words to read. I don't always use the King James, but there is beauty in the words. For as much as this people refuses the waters of Shiloh, it says, this is Shiloh, that goes softly, peaceful, and rejoice in Rezin and Remaliah's son. So they refused the waters of Shiloh, of this daughter. Now we know it's a daughter. All right? We do. Just simply by studying the word. And so we're going to find it. Let's go to Proverbs. All right? And we might be able to wrap this up a lot quicker than I thought. Watch what it says in Proverbs. And we will go. It speaks of listening to the harlot and to the horror spirit, which is what the first Adam made a covenant with, which it comes down to Old Testament law, man-made laws, wherein the sin is imputed. That's how Christ was crucified. He would not uphold their man-made laws. He would not uphold the harlot laws. He puts the harlot in charge because the harlot puts him in charge and makes him a god. That's the abomination that maketh desolate. A man inside of a man. A man cannot rule a man. All right? That's what that's telling you. This is an abomination that maketh desolate. The harlot. All right? When he exalts the harlot, and that's what you have in allegory in Proverbs 5. This ignorant, it speaks of a son as being ignorant here, being stupid in what he's doing. But what does it say of the righteous spirit, of the righteous woman? And it is a woman. It is daughter Zion. It says in verse 15 of Proverbs 5, it says, drink waters out of thine own cisterns, and running waters out of thine own well. Verse 16, let thy fountains be dispersed abroad in rivers of waters in the street. So we're getting an allusion to Jerusalem, where the waters are actually flowing out from the temple in Ezekiel 47. Watch this. Okay, I got the wrong passage pulled up here. Let's just parallel the entire chapter, because I can go down and look at this in a minute. Sorry about that, folks. But what does it say here? We're talking about the New Jerusalem here. And it says this. I'm sorry. I probably got the wrong chapter. It's probably 46 that I'm looking at. And it speaks of the water that flows out from under the temple. All right? And that these waters flow to the four corners of the world. All right? And it is this spirit that nourishes the world. All right? Yeah, it's in 46, I believe. No, I'm wrong again. I'm sorry. It is 46 or 47. Okay, so I'm losing my track of thought. I'm sorry about that. I hate it when I do this. But the angel takes Ezekiel. Yeah, it's 47 is what it is. Let me see here. I can find it. But it speaks of the water flowing out from under the temple. And then it speaks of how it goes forth from the threshold. All right? Now, I can't find it. It's amazing when I want to find something. But it speaks of those waters that is being spoken of and referenced in Proverbs 5:15. Drink waters out of thine own cisterns, and running waters out of thine own well. Let thy fountains be dispersed abroad in rivers of waters in the streets. Let them be only thine own, and not strangers with thee. Let thy fountain be blessed, and rejoice with the wife of thy youth. Where did we find Adam rejecting the wife of his youth? The righteous spirit given in covenant with her waters, with her words, with the spirit of truth from heaven. Where did we find him rejecting her? Well, we found that in Malachi 2. All right? So we're not going to look at that again. But let's reread that verse. Let thy fountain be blessed, and rejoice with the wife of thy youth. She sits in the Holy of Holies. Verse 19. Let her be as the loving hind. No, look the word up here. It's she-goat. And a pleasant roe. It's a she-goat. Let her breast satisfy thee at all times, and be thou ravished always with her love. All right? There you have the allegory of the righteous spirit as your wife given in covenant in your youth, which we are told that man, Judah, representing the first, rejected a covenant with and chose to marry the daughter, it says, of a strange god. That's strange words. That's wicked words, all right? That she lured him away, saying, you can rule yourself. Just exalt me in your heart. And how do we know that? Well, Isaiah 47. Let's look at that. That she became known as daughter Babylon, the harlot, that man exalted in his heart. But what did he do? He hid the fact that he exalted her. So she got blamed for it. The righteous spirit actually took the blame. She's known as the Azazel goat, cast out into the lands of the Gentiles. What does she say here? Isaiah 47. It says, come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. Sit on the ground. There is no throne for you, O daughter of the Chaldeans. Because this kingdom, the rulership always belonged to the daughter of Zion. Right? Proverbs. He chose the harlot spirit, wherein he was left to govern himself is what man does. Because he didn't want her ruling him. Well, she doesn't rule in the way that man rules. Her rule is very peaceful, it's very loving, right? So let her be as the loving hind, as the she-goat. Why is the she-goat important? Because she's what's found in the Abrahamic covenant in Genesis 15:9. She's your she-goat. And she represents the righteous spirit given in covenant, and she is also called the daughter of Zion. She's known as Mother Jerusalem from above. Now, Mother Jerusalem speaks of rising up out of her temple. It's like she's asleep, all right? And she's asleep because we're asleep. The Spirit is asleep within us. Now, I wanted to get into that study, but I don't know that I'll have enough time. But what does it say again of the daughter of Babylon? Sit thou silent and get thee into darkness. All right? And you will no more be known as the lady of the kingdom, as the queen of the kingdom. All right? You go look the word up. She says, the daughter of Zion, I was wroth with my people, or Mother Jerusalem. I have polluted mine inheritance and given them into thine hand. Thou didst show them no mercy. Upon the ancient hast thou very heavily laid the yoke. But what does she say here? What does the daughter of Zion say here? She says, I am and none else beside me. I shall not sit as a widow, neither shall I know the loss of children. She's got them so ensnared in her lies, in her law, and man's exalting the harlot in his heart, that he's even convinced himself that he's the ruler of all things, that he's God. That's what he's convinced himself of. She says, I will not know the loss of widowhood. I will not know widowhood or the loss of children. But she says, they'll come to you in a day. For thou hast trusted in thy wickedness. Thou hast said, none seeth me. Because you know why none seeth her? Because man hides the harlot spirit in his heart. That's who he truly exalts in his heart. He does not exalt the righteous spirit within him. He does not. He wants to rule himself. He doesn't want her righteous and peaceful rule. He wants his own. Wherein it proves that he's not fit to govern himself because sin is shaped under the law. And that sin is the same sin that nailed Christ to the cross because he died to exalt the righteous spirit in his heart, which is her law. Do you see how it works? So she says, none seeth me. I'm hid. She ain't hid anymore. But it says, let thy fountain be blessed and rejoice with the wife of thy youth. Where else is she? Well, she's found in Song of Solomon, Song of Songs 4:12. It says, you are a garden locked up, my sister, my bride. You are a spring enclosed, a sealed fountain. And we're not talking about many. We do not teach the law of Torah, Old Testament law, wherein men were allowed to take many, many, many brides. Our beginning showed one male, one female. Our beginning showed one bridegroom, one bride. It showed one body, one spirit. That's what it showed. And then you end up in Galatians 4 with two covenants. One with the harlot, identified as Hagar, and one that frees you from all the bondage of the law that man wrote, wherein sin is incorporated into that law through violence, through war, through hate, through personal gain under that law. And it is Sarah representing your Mother Jerusalem from above that frees you. All right, she is what gives life to all things. All right, so we have that allegory. And like we said, she's compared to the she-goat. Your she-goat is known as the covenant of the lily. She appears in some of David's psalms that he speaks of. They are known as the covenant. It is known as the covenant of the lily. Why the lily? Go to Song of Songs. She's called the lily of the covenant. And she is the shepherdess of a flock of she-goats. She says, my own vineyard I have neglected because my brothers were mad at me. They were angry at me. And so she said, but my own vineyard I have neglected. I have not been teaching them the truth that was given to me in the beginning. I got sidetracked by their laws, by their lies about who I was. And so now we come down to these daughters understanding truth. All right? And they rejected the gentle flowing waters of Shiloh. Shiloh is your shepherdess. That the nations will gather to. She's your assembler that you find in Song of Solomon. in your Ecclesiastics, rather, not in Song of Solomon, it's Song of Songs actually. But here we go again. She is found in Psalm 22, and she's known as the doe of the morning, is what they call her. Let's go to Psalm 22. But she's again your she-goat of this covenant, going the wrong way. Psalm 22, I don't think it translates it in the King James. I don't think it translates any of these passages in your King James. No, it doesn't. So let me pull it up here, okay? Right quick if I can. Psalms 22. This is your she-goat in the covenant, Abraham covenant, that you find in Genesis 15:9. And it says in Revelations 4:1, it says before anything else can come to pass, she must come into existence. Absolutely. Before anything else can go forth, she absolutely must come into existence, it says. And that's the righteous spirit of Christ manifested on this earth in the way that God rules. Okay, now Psalm 22 verse 1 says, for the director of music to the tune of the doe of the morning. Now when you go look doe up there, it's going to lead you right back to she-goat. She's the she-goat of the morning. A psalm of David. My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from saving me, so far from my cries of anguish? Okay? Now we've been through all these passages in other videos. If you want to know more about the she-goat, the lilies of the covenant, I've done quite a bit of information on that. But here, Christ, I believe in Jude 1:3, I believe he's talking distinctly to his one beloved. So this is what I got out of 1:3. Dear beloved, although I was very eager to write to you about the salvation we share, I felt compelled to write and urge you to contend earnestly for the faith that was once entrusted to you, to daughter Zion. She's known as Israel as well, because they were her inheritance. She represents the woman's seed, Eve, to God's holy people. All right? So it was entrusted to her in the very beginning, right? And so he claimed his key of David. That's the daughter of Zion. Now daughter of Zion claims the vineyard. All right? That's how it works. All right? And so, but what happened as we pulled away from mother, we pulled away from our own power by going to a he, and believing his physical power represents God. The spirit, it says, not by might nor by power, but by my spirit do I do these things. That's how I accomplish what I'm going to accomplish. I've always done it this way, God says. And we've discussed how woman being the last thing created in the garden, it was a stacking order going up. She represents glory that sits on top. So she represents the spirit that rules the body, is what she represents. She represents that capstone where they're calling glory, glory unto it in Zechariah 4. All right? Mother says, I'm going to level the playing field. She says, I'm going to take down those mountains. Who thinks they're your rulers? That's your he-goats. And she calls them he-goats. But it says of her. And I do tend to think that this verse goes with the daughter as opposed with the son. Because I believe the next verse is the son's verse. I believe Psalm 110:3 is actually referencing the daughter. And it says, your people will volunteer on your day of battle, but in holy splendor from the womb of the dawn. Now we talked about the dawn. It says she begins to shine forth like the dawn. She shines from between the cherubim like the dawn. She's shining forth brighter and brighter. And in holy splendor from the womb of the dawn, the dew of your youth belongs to you. The dew is that water. The dew is the doctrine of heaven. It is the law of heaven, and it always belonged to her, the Spirit. The daughter Zion, it always belonged to her from the very beginning. And it says, of her waters in Proverbs. Let's read it again, lest we forget. Drink waters out of thine own cisterns, and running waters out of thine own well. Let thy fountains be dispersed abroad, and rivers of waters in the street. Let them be only thine own, and not strangers with thee. Let thy fountain be blessed, and rejoice with the wife of thy youth. Let her be as a loving she-goat. Let her breast satisfy thee at all times, and be thou ravished always with her love. This is the spirit in allegory. And preceding that is the harlot that fallen Adam made a covenant with, that exalted him as a god in the earth. And she says, no one sees me, I'm hid in his heart. He doesn't exalt the righteous spirit, he exalts the harlot by exalting himself. That's what he's doing. And that is the abomination that maketh desolate a man inside of a man. There'll be no children produced out of that union. Alright? Because she is what gives life to all things. That is what we are told in the very beginning. And you'll have no life without her. None. She says, you forgot the God that gave birth to you. You forgot the God that writhed in pain to bring you forth. You forgot about her. And she says, when I created you, there was no God with me. I was alone. So, and she says, I swear by myself that I live forever. So, you know, you can say it's not there. It is so there. It is all there if you want to go in and search for the truth. The deeper truths are there in the scriptures, hiding for us to discover in the end of days. It's like a book sealed, right? Daniel says, seal it up. And we have those allegories again all through scriptures. I was studying awake again. What does it say here? Did I finish that verse? Yeah. Psalm 44:23. Awake, Lord. Awake. So she's asleep. The spirit, at least, of this Lord, which is 136 here. This is Psalm 44:23. Why do you sleep? Rouse yourself. Do not reject us forever. Why do you hide your face and forget our misery and our oppression? Well, women are the ones largely in misery and oppression. Men are too, but it's because of their own loss. But she's asleep. Why is she asleep? Because the spirit went asleep into the heavens. That's what we get here in, let me see if I can find it. I wrote it down. I thought I did. It's in Zechariah. Right, Zechariah 2:13. It says, be silent before the Lord. That's 3068. All people. For she has roused herself from her holy temple. It says his. But this is mother rising up. You know why she's finally rising up? And this is what they're so afraid of us daughters doing. Beginning to call on our mother. Because she is the power behind everything. And they're afraid of her. When we went to sleep, it looks like she became almost in a sleepful state. That's why you get a lot of allegories too in Hollywood too. Sleeping Beauty. Sleeping Beauty. Right? Aurora. Sleeping. A sleeping beauty. You know? Because she sleeps. Right? Psalm 78:65. Then the Lord, 136, awoke as from sleep like a warrior overcome with wine. She wasn't drunk. What does it say? It says we stagger about, but not with strong drink. We're staggering in the streets. It says truth has been cast off, and it says it staggers in the streets. It staggers because man has rejected her. All right? She can no longer enter into the streets, it says. Right? She's been cast off far. And it says, we stagger, but not from strong drink. Stay yourselves and wander. Isaiah 29:9. Cry ye out and cry. They are drunken, but not with wine. They stagger, but not with strong drink. Verse 10. For the Lord has poured out upon you the spirit of deep sleep. We no longer know the truth, and we're staggering. That's what we're doing. And hath closed your eyes. The prophets and your rulers, the seers, the ones who know the truth, hath she covered. Now it's interesting because the cup that Joseph supposedly prophesied out of, that silver cup that he hid in Benjamin's packings so he could kind of blame them and get them in the position that he wanted to get them into. But it is said that that cup might have been shaped or looked like a lily or even an almond. And this is the cup that he was said to drink from and prophesy from. So it's showing you getting his waters from the wife of his youth, from the lilies of the covenant, from the she-goat, from the heifer that is promised to be restored back to her rightful place. All right? So here you have them staggering, right? And what does it say of our Lord? 136. Then the Lord awoke as from sleep like a warrior overcome by wine. She finally wakes up to the truth that's in there, weaved like a silver thread for us to find as the daughters of Zion. If you're not questioning the feminine in scriptures, then you have yet to awake. Okay? You need to awake to the truth. Isaiah 42:13, the Lord will go forth like a warrior. She will stir up her zeal like a soldier. She will shout, yes, she will roar. She will prevail against her enemies. All right? That's your daughter of Zion, but here she's called Lord. Well, if you go to Psalm 110, watch this. I'm running out of time, but I do have this wrote down. What did I say? If you go to Deuteronomy, that's it. It's Deuteronomy 10. I wrote it down. Am I going to find it fast enough? Deuteronomy 10. It refers to Lord of Lords and God of Gods there. And you will get the understanding that mother and daughter literally are one and the same. Because when these daughters wake up, you get the allegory of mother waking up in her temple in the heavens. And so you have the projection of what you're being shown about the tabernacle in Hebrews, where it says the tabernacle below is based on the tabernacle above, and also what dwells that tabernacle. So when she rises, right, Zechariah 2:13, be silent before the Lord, that's 3068. All people, for she has roused herself from her holy dwelling. That's the heavenly mother who indwells the daughters of Zion here on earth. All right? And so she gets that title on earth as Lord 3068 and 136. And that whole terminology comes together in Deuteronomy 10. If I could just locate the verse here. For anybody who's following me, and I know I'm difficult to follow. Where is it? I wrote it down. Deuteronomy, I know it's 10 for sure. Let's see here. Okay, Deuteronomy. Has it been that long? It's been a long time since I wrote it down, apparently. Come on. All I can tell you is go to Deuteronomy 10. And go to your interlinear and look your words up, or your Hebrew concordance, and look your words up, and you will find that it's 3068 with 136. And I have come to realize it is when mother awakes and these daughters awake on earth that she begins to indwell them. And she says, who will bring me into Edom? And she's talking about these daughters rising up with the truth of the law of heaven in their mouth, which is what's going to birth the body. All right? It's only a woman that births, not no man. And it just amazes me how the daughters are continuing to remain ignorant to these truths, not desiring to call out to God and say, who am I? It is Deuteronomy 10. I'm sorry. I cannot find it in my notes. Wasted all that time. But that's that part. And what does it say in Isaiah 26, verse 19? But your dead will live. Their bodies will rise. All right? Let those who dwell in the dust wake up and shout for joy. Your dew is like the dew of the morning. The earth will give birth to her dead. You see how she does it? She does it through the truth. She does it through the laws of heaven. And only she can do this. And that is when we actually raise the dead. Raise up the dead, it says. In Isaiah 27, it says, Israel will fill the world with fruit. That means with children. And it's just amazing your cross-references on this. Let's go to it if we have time. I may not have time. We got 10 minutes here. So let's just look at our cross-references and look and read them. Read them through. All right? We want Isaiah 26 for our cross-reference. Isaiah 26, and we want verse 19. All right? And I am on Bible Hub right now. And it'll pull up my cross-references. When I parallel the chapters, and then I go down, and I hit on verse 19, and it will parallel my chapters for me. It will pull up that one verse, rather. And then it's going to bring up a whole, what I call cross-reference verses, which they probably actually aren't called cross-reference verses, but that's what I'm calling them. And it is just amazing what you can learn from that. All right? It says, the Lord brings death and gives life. The Lord here is 3068, but her representation here on earth is 136, so the two are one. The Lord brings death and gives life. We're also told that is that Lord 136 that does bring deliverance. So the issues of life and death belongs to that Lord, which is 136. She's identified in Psalm 68. Some she brings down to Sheol, and others she raises up. Psalm 22:29. All the rich of the earth will feast and worship. All who go down to the dust will kneel before her. Even those unable to preserve their life. Why? Because she can. Right? She's the only one that can do this. For this is what the Lord has told me. I will quietly look on from my dwelling place like shimmering heat in the sunshine, like a cloud of dew in the heat of harvest. I just find these verses so fascinating and so telling when we get looking at them. Isaiah 60 verse 1. Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. Right? So the glory that rises upon these daughters of Zion is the Lord from heaven, 3068, that's mother. She's awakened in her temple. I know when she does that, that the world begins to resound with a lot of movement, and the children of darkness begins to fear greatly because they see the daughters getting ready to rise up, and they are the ones that are imbued with the greatest power of all. And I know men don't want to hear that, but it says you are to be nourished, you are to be watered by your own wife. That represents the Spirit. We've just shown you how that's so. And there's other passages. There's so many other passages in here. And again, the prince in Ezekiel 44, 46, and 47, he speaks to the Lord, 136, who then speaks to the Lord. She actually represents the Lord, 3068, which is mother. And then it speaks of the waters that comes out from under the temple that nourishes the entire world. So we're talking about the doctrine of truth. We're talking about the laws of heaven that was rejected by the first Adam, and she was known as the daughter of Zion, Mother Jerusalem from above. That was the Spirit. She says in Job 30, Job says, I made a covenant with mine eyes. Why then should I think upon another maid? For what portion of God is there from above? He's talking about his wife. And Ezekiel 47:10, it says, fishermen will stand along the shore from En-gedi. That's the spring of the kid. That's of the she-goat. En-gedi means the spring of the she-goat. To En-eglaim. That means the spring of the two calves. I haven't fully understood the two calves here. There will be places for spreading nets. The fish will be of many kinds, like the fish of the Mediterranean Sea. It says everywhere where this water flows, It says, wherever the river flows, this is the river that's flowing from under the temple, all right, in New Jerusalem, which we're looking at on earth here in Ezekiel 47. It says, wherever the rivers flow, there will be swarms of living creatures and a great number of fish, because it flows there and makes the water fresh. So wherever the river flows, everything will flourish. Fishermen will stand by the shore from En-gedi to En-eglaim. They will spread their nets to catch fish of many kinds like the fish of the great sea, but the swamps and marshes will not become fresh. They will be left for salt. It tells you all about this glorious water, all right? That is to water every nation on earth, which then the world becomes known as Israel. That's what Isaiah 27 tells us, because that is a picture of your righteous spirit back in her rightful place, and she was put in her rightful place by the sacrifice of Christ on the cross. That's what this is all telling us. This is the truth that it is leading us daughters back to who we truly are. Man exalts the harlot in his heart because he in effect wants to exalt himself, and that's what that permits him to do. And she says, that harlot that's exalted in the second heaven, known as daughter Babylon, known as Lucifer, that he has a covenant with, which is basically identified as himself. She left him to himself, wherein we all become suppressed and oppressed under his laws. So maybe it's Ezekiel 47. I cannot never find anything. I guess my eyes don't see what they need to see when I'm moving so fast here. But it does speak of the waters flowing out from the temple, your living waters. And your wife represents your spirit given in covenant. That was to give you these nourishing waters, which are the laws of heaven, which the first Adam rejected. It's all there, just nobody wants to hear it. But it states also in the scriptures that there's going to come a day when they will hear it. They will hear it. Because they're going to hear it and they're going to know it to be the truth. By what takes place, they're going to see it identified as the truth. So there you go. I'm sorry if it's a bit of a mess. I might add some other stuff to that. I'm not sure. When I get looking through, I'll probably be going, well, why didn't you say this? Why didn't you say that? So there you go. It's all there in the scriptures, all right? For anybody who wants to see it and understand the laws of heaven on your heart. It's written on your heart. What your heart is telling you. And my heart tells me that my Lord did not come to suppress me. He did not. He came to free me from the bondage of the law. And his love, if it shows me nothing else, it shows me this truth. And it is love. That's what it is. I don't know how you can say it isn't love. So, I hope the Lord blesses you in all that you do and that you're pursuing. And I hope y'all have a really nice day. Thanks for watching my videos.